It's the 100th episode. Woo!
I am never going to get this confetti out of my laptop. There's some in our tea. Very festive.
Hi, ghosties.
Hi, I'm Macy.
And I'm Natalie.
And as Natalie said, it is our 100th episode.
Woohoo! How did we get here? Where did we come from? Where did we go? You know the rest.
That's the vibe I'm feeling today, honestly. Yeah.
I got confetti poppers, and I am going to have a very hard time cleaning this later.
Yeah, I'm shocked at the amount of small pieces.
And my clammy little hands are covered.
Yeah, it's all sticking to mine too. Anyway.
It is the 100th episode!
Episode 100. We can't believe that we're here.
No.
Shocking, honestly.
Oh, by the way, to answer your questions, I'm going to go and find who commented it because I was waiting for more comments to roll in about the cat's name. And there were tons of honorable mentions.
Very, very good name.
There was Salem. There was Kit T, like, you know, tea. There were a few others that were very, very cute. But my favorite that I have landed on.
And it was one of the first comments, too.
This cat is named Merv.
It just felt right.
It feels really right. So that little ghost is Tina. And this is Merv.
Introducing Merv.
But yes, this is Merv. This is our 100th episode. I'm feeling weird.
Yeah, it all feels weird. It all feels very weird. And we thought to commemorate, we were going to look back.
Yes.
Look back on some of our scariest listener stories.
Yes, I'm very, very excited. We went through and handpicked the scariest ones we could find, although there
ones
were...
that jumped out to us, though. Like the ones that we, just a quick skim, were like, oh yeah, this scarred me.
Yeah, but there were so many more. And I could go on.
Yeah, I cut this down from like over 50 pages to 23 pages of stories. So
yes, and I don't know all the ones that were picked. I know the ones I picked. I don't know what you picked, so I'm excited to see.
And before we get started, we just wanted to say that we appreciate every single one of you. Whether you've sent in a story or not, this wouldn't be possible without you. We wouldn't have 100 episodes. Well, we wouldn't have 100 published episodes without you guys.
We might still be doing it, but we wouldn't
still be doing it. But I don't know that we'd be pursuing it as vigorously as we are currently.
Yeah, probably.
So thank you. We have like over 2,000 emails still unread to continue on with. I just can't wait for 100 more.
Oh my God. I can't even imagine. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's very crazy.
So without further ado, let's celebrate 100 by scaring the pants off of us. Our tea is Bigelow English Breakfast.
It is, and we are going to light these little sparklers, and I'm very terrified after the confetti.
Like disaster.
Yep. Let's go. I'm feeling good.
That was good. That was great. So
I'm feeling right. That was very eventful and not at all what I expected, but I think that kind of sums up the pod.
Yes, we just kind of fly by the seat of our pants here.
We really do.
I'm happy. Now,
it's good cake.
It was pretty good. Now, are you ready to be scared?
Ugh, I guess.
So our first story comes from Victoria. So this is one we've mentioned many times over the last year and a half. We've been putting these together. And it was from our very first listener stories episode. It has scarred us ever since. And if you want to listen to some of our very first listener stories from the OG listeners, you can check out episode 12. That's what this story is from. Hello, my name is Victoria, and this haunting happened to me when I was about 8 years old. I'm currently 24 years old, and since then, it's stayed in my mind. I've always been into the supernatural and magic. Something has always drawn me to it. I like to say maybe it's because my great-grandpa was a curandero, witch doctor. I'm so sorry, that was very not Spanish, in northern Mexico. So I've always been sensitive to energy changes and whatnot. So basically, my brothers and I shared a room. My little brother and I on the top bunk, and my older brother in the bottom bunk. We had a little nightlight that used to change colors every other second to light up our pitch black room. I was trying to sleep when I felt like I need to open my eyes right away.
I know what's happening. Oh no.
I opened them just to see my big Winnie the Pooh bear moving from side to side, as if something or itself was moving it almost like a baby. It was laying down, all the way on the other side of the room. I shut my eyes and tried not to cry. I covered my eyes with my heavy Mexican blanket, but I needed to get air, and once I took it off, I felt a heavy presence over me. My body felt hot, and I couldn't move. I tried screaming out for my brother, but I was too scared. Once I tried that, all I heard was a gummy smile. You know when your mouth makes a noise when you smile? Well, exactly like that. All I thought was get up and run. I kept waiting for the nightlight to change to a bright color, but it felt like it stayed stuck on red forever. Finally, I was able to scream out, and I ran down, grabbed my puppy, and booked it to my parents' bedroom, and they didn't believe me. There have been many more times where whatever it was attacked me and my younger cousins, but never the adults. We stayed in that house for about 3 more years before we finally left. Glad to say nothing too crazy has happened in our new house, but here and there we still feel small energy shifts.
And you are correct. This has scarred me for life.
This is one we've talked about.
For life. I think about it every time I'm outside and it's quiet. I think about it in the dark. I think about it all the time. Yeah. So thank you, Victoria.
It's a good one.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Just the thought of that noise.
Oh, it's sick. And I hate mouth noises anyway.
So do I.
Can't do it. And to hear... Okay, we have to move on.
Well, our next one is a snippet of a story sent to us by the history drag queen, Wendy Weather. It was from our second Listener Stories episode 19. The entire story is worth a listen, but we wanted to tell you the part that still sticks in our brains today.
Yes, and shout out to Wendy Weather. Go follow her on TikTok.
And I think YouTube now.
YouTube. Yes, I did see that they are on YouTube now. So
if history interests you and you like to see drag, Wendy Weather's the one to go to. I was 13, had terrible insomnia, and still, as always, would get a glass of water at night. I know living in a low-key haunted house, I should have known better, but I never knew of my brother's experiences until afterwards. So if you want to hear of the brother's experiences, you can go back and listen to the full thing. Getting a glass of water became sort of this dance me and the house would do nightly. I'd turn all the lights on possible, get my water, then I would very quickly turn off all the lights as I passed them, never turning around to look behind me. Until one night, while hurrying back to my bedroom, I heard a door slam so loud you would have thought it broke. I quickly started running, sprinting to my room. As I turned to turn the hallway light off that was next to my bedroom door, it was standing there. Right where the edge of the light met the end of the hall stood a tall, dark figure with a large black-rimmed hat and black boots and long black coat with smoke-filled eyes and face. It to this day is the scariest thing I have ever seen. I closed my door, leaving the hall light on. I locked my door and pushed my bed in front of it. The next morning, I did get in trouble for accidentally leaving the hall light on, but from that point forward, I started keeping 2 glasses of water in my bedroom before I went to bed. The next encounter solidified that I was not seeing things. A few weeks later, I was home alone, taking a shower, and the lights went out. I assumed it was a burnt bulb, a power outage, or my older brother, who I knew was on his way home, was playing a prank or something. I got out of the shower and saw the light switch was indeed turned off. Haha, very funny, older brother's name, and I got back in the shower. Then, as if from a freaking movie, an imprint of a hand touched the shower curtain and said, "Hi," in the most sinister, hissing whisper I've ever heard in my life. I screamed at the top of my lungs and ran out of the house with nothing but a towel. I was standing in the yard for a good 2 minutes until I saw my brother's truck pull up to the house. It was clear I had still been in the house alone. My brother, clearly seeing my 13-year-old self outside in just a towel and scared out of my mind, asked me what happened, and I told him. To which he said, "Oh no, it's okay. He's a nice old man. I saw him once. You're not crazy. He was just saying hi. He's nice. Trust me." I was petrified of that bathroom and could not stand being in it for more than 2 minutes at a time. I probably still am to this day, but I took my brother's word and tried to ignore the nice old man saying hi or doing whatever. It wasn't until I had gotten super sick one day and was sleeping in my mom's room one night that I had another encounter. I woke up in the middle of the night and saw this weird black mass on the ceiling. Then I started to hear boot steps. I turned into a 5-year-old that very second and immediately hid under the covers. I then could feel a touch go across my leg over the blankets and then heard footsteps walk away. I stayed under the covers until I fell asleep.
The shower one?
Yeah.
That's another one I'll never forget. I even got scared hearing it the second time.
You even talked about it the other day in one of our episodes.
Did I?
Yeah.
God, because that one is, I think, everybody's worst nightmare. In the shower?
You're just vulnerable, yeah.
Yes. Naked and afraid. We've said it before. I think I said it in that episode.
I think you did.
Just a horrifying experience. And if my brother was like, "Oh, he's nice," I'd have to swing.
Then you better leave me alone in the shower. You don't know what I've experienced.
I would be so horrified.
Yeah.
I am horrified.
Wendy Weather was also horrified and ran outside in a towel. So,
my God.
So our next one comes from Angelica. This was one of the first stories that we read that gave me chills every single time that I read it. This is from Listener Stories number 4, episode 30. I work at a mortuary/cemetery, and there are so many creepy stories, but the one that got me was a security guard I work with told me he was doing his nightly rounds in the cemetery, and he went to make sure the mausoleum was locked and the cemetery was empty. A lot of people that practice witchcraft do the rituals in the mausoleum. He noticed the mausoleum light was on, and he went to go ensure it was empty, but then he heard a woman humming and followed it, and it led to a crypt. He kindly told the voice to rest, and it stopped.
That one.
Ugh, I just got chills again.
In the crypt.
Hearing the voice from within and being like, hey, cool it.
Just rest. I would be resting in peace. I would die.
As
if
the
I heard
security guard?
Yes. I'd rest.
Immediately?
Yeah.
Ugh, yeah, that one really gets me.
Too much. It's too much. I don't want to harp on these too long and talk about them because
we gave our reactions the first time.
Yeah, and that one I remember being petrified.
That's one of the first ones that truly, truly scared me.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So this is one I know you guys have heard us reference a lot. We've picked out the scariest portions of this email, and I think she needs no introduction. This is Brandi.
I knew
Listener
it.
Story 6, episode 55.
Oh, Brandi. I know her. She's a friend from childhood.
Yeah.
Never met her.
One of my earlier memories of a ghost was when I was a small child, probably 8. I remember not being able to sleep at night and just laying there awake staring at my TV, which was off, but the way it was set up, I could see in the reflection out into the hallway. So I'm laying there, wide awake. Then, in the reflection, I see a lady peek out around the corner like she was trying to peek in my room. There is no way she could see me or know I was watching through the reflection. I just pulled my covers up to my nose. Then a pale, skinny arm poked out its hand, pointing towards the bathroom door. I just pulled my covers completely over my head and didn't go out of my room until I heard my mom up the next morning. Don't play with Ouija boards. So as I was telling you before, my aunt used to play with Ouija boards very casually. So naturally, I got one too. Toys R Us, $12. Gotta be 21 to drink in this country, 18 to die for it, but only 8 and up to summon the devil.
That still gets me.
My aunt had played Ouija so much, I kind of thought they were moving the planchette just to freak me out. My uncle would get it out to try to learn things about the historic home they had bought. Then he'd ask the ghost where it was in the house while we were talking to it. One time he asked if it was behind him, and it said no. He says, behind Brandi? And it went yes. He was like, do you like her? It moved off, then back on yes, which is creepy, but still not sure if he's just messing with me or not. But anyways, this is why I wasn't taking the board serious at this point. However, since I had seen weird things before, I would not sleep in the dark. My mom had a dimmer dial installed as my light switch so I could dim the lights. Also, the switch would sometimes dim and brighten the lights with no one near it. So I go back home after staying with my aunt and uncle. I'm 15 at this point. My closet door will not quit popping open. I close it, sit back down, and it pops open again. The dang thing would stay shut all day too. After a couple of times the door doing that, I finally go over there and pull my Ouija board out of it. I sit down on my bed. You're not supposed to play it alone. But it's just a game, right? 8 and up. I get it out and sit it on my lap. I start asking questions. What do you want? Nothing. What's your problem? Nothing. I'm not supposed to be doing this alone. Is that what you wanted? Nothing. Who's in there? Kurt Cobain? Elvis? That would be cool. You're not that cool though, huh? Nothing. I sit there and wait. I'm just like, okay, you're not real. Either that or you're weak. All you can do is pop open the closet. A closet of a small teenage girl. What are you even doing here? You're a creep, huh? Cool. If you can't talk to me, then leave my dang door alone. Then I throw the board back in the box. Yep, that's right. I didn't tell it bye. I threw it back in the box and back onto my shelf in the closet and slammed the closet door. It didn't listen to me though. That night when I lay down to go to sleep, the closet door pops open. So my mother answers phones all day at her job. So that's one thing she doesn't do once she's home. All calls were screened via our answering machine. The next day, our phone rings, the answering machine picks up. White noise, static, and a gravelly, garbled voice is on there. The only intelligible words were, "I'll get you, bitch." Then it disconnects. My mom freaks out. She wants to know who I made mad. I told her I don't know who that was. It's not a lie, right? I don't know who it was. And it's not like she would believe me anyways. I called her for that tape. I wanted to send it to you. Unfortunately, she threw the answering machine away long ago.
As would I.
Soon after, I start seeing shadow people. Maybe from the doorway I left open. Maybe from my closet, since there seems to have been something going on in there from the beginning. But not long after I jump awake in my room, it's leaning over me. My lights are dim, but this shadow person was leaning over me while I was sleeping. When I open my eyes, it jerks back and drops down to the ground. I sat up in my bed and looked down. There it was, crouched. I watched it skitter away towards my window. I I have never woken up with one doing that ever again. I see them occasionally, never close, always peeking. So maybe don't play with Ouija boards, or at least follow the rules while playing.
I have tears in my eyes again.
Yeah, that one's so scary.
I hate it so much.
And that was just a snippet. She had several other stories too, and a few of our listener stories.
Yes, Brandi is an OG over here and tells a horrifying story.
That one's intense. That one's for sure intense. Ugh, I hate the thought of it still being crouched there.
No, my eyes are watering, and I think I even said it in the episode. It's like, it's one thing to see it, but once it like disappears, you don't expect it to just be crouched waiting. Oh no.
So this next little portion of a longer story makes my skin crawl. It's from Tierra. We read it in Listener Stories 9, episode 61. You'll see what I mean. Let's start off with a backstory. My great-grandpa used to do exorcisms back in the 70s and 80s. He had a small house in the backyard where this would take place. My grandmother would go in this exorcism house with friends to goof around until one night she went in with her sister and the door slammed shut behind her. Cabinets and drawers, etc. were rapidly opening and closing and plates flying. She passed out and woke up and saw black orbs flying around. Anything other than that, she won't tell me what happened because it was so traumatic. The whole family thinks because of this, we had a curse put on us. Fast forward to the early 2000s. I was about 5 years old and remember this story like the back of my hand. We moved into an apartment, me, my mom, and dad. Every other day, they would both take out the laundry to the laundromat in the complex. They'd go together because it was an unsafe area. They'd leave me home and lock the doors. Well, every time they'd leave, things would happen. I'd feel energies around me with dark auras. One night after they left, I cried and sat on the stair steps waiting by the front door. I held my Cookie Monster plush and kept looking behind me. The lights started flickering on and off, and a tall lady in white was at the top of the stairs watching me. She almost looked like the Grudge from my memory. She started slowly crawling down the steps towards me as I screamed, then started running towards me. As she got to the last step, my parents opened the door in a panic. She disappeared and the lights went back to normal. I know what I saw and felt, and it's been 18 years since.
I remember that one. I've blocked it out, but everything just came like whoosh back into my brain. That is a horrifying image that I...
Standing and watching her cry to crawling down the steps to running at a quick speed. What? I'm glad her parents opened the door.
Me too.
At the time that they did.
I can't imagine. Can I say something?
Yes.
The scream that I just scrumped was horrible.
Okay, thank you.
We recently received the best comment we've ever received.
It was pretty funny.
And I don't care what anyone says. I'm getting it put on a shirt. I wasn't even going to say anything. I was just going to show up with the shirt. But I want y'all to know. Someone commented with no emotion, no emojis, nothing. Just...
No timestamp either, so we don't even know what they're talking about.
Just says, Macy screams like a Hank Hill.
I read it. I was on the phone with Natalie. And I pulled it up and I read it for the first time and I couldn't stop laughing enough to tell her for like several seconds. It was so funny.
Literally the best comment we've ever gotten. And I don't know if this person is like trying with us or trying to be mean, but
either way, it was hilarious.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Natalie let me know today that she pinned the comment. So if you find the video, it's the first comment on that.
I did pin the comment. Macy screams like Hank Hill. Period.
That's hilarious.
Okay. I hope it was a hate comment.
I kind of do too.
I hope they were being mean because it brought me so much joy.
Oh, it was good.
Anyway, because I just went, oh, and I was like, maybe that's what they're talking about. Maybe they're talking about me.
No, I think I scream like Hank Hill sometimes. Okay, that's now that my embarrassment is done, let's move on. No, that's funny.
We'll just call you Hank.
So this next story, absolutely unbelievable. I think what was so scary and so shocking was the amount of time this horror lasted. And this is a snippet from Listener Stories 11, episode 64, one of Fox Goblin 666's stories.
Fox Goblin. I remember the name.
It all started when I was in secondary school, about 15 years old. I ended up going home because I had a headache or felt unwell. Can't really remember. But I do remember the day was bright and very warm. It must have been September, literally the other side of summer, and today was like any other day. I decided I wanted to walk the less noisy way, which was going through what the town called Bentley Lane. It's a small wooded area before a main road, the usual way most of the kids walked, and my usual way home. But today, to avoid the noise of traffic and a quicker and prettier way home, I decided to cross the road and cut into an old graveyard. which my family has known for years. Usually, it's not a bad way to walk through, and it cuts off the only road in and out of town. It was recently being redone due to flooding from the river and rainstorms. The graves had started to lift up out of the ground. I remember not feeling too uncomfortable, maybe just unwell. And as I walked through the graveyard, I remembered that no one was there, and it was quiet. So, as I was walking through the graveyard, I didn't feel uneasy or uncomfortable until I got to the second part of the graveyard, which was the oldest part and the most damaged by the storms. As I walked through, I started to get an uncomfortable feeling and remember thinking I needed to get to the gate on the other side of the yard and as quickly as possible. I didn't really know why, as I knew I was alone and it was the middle of the day. I also knew that I was still about 10 minutes away from my home, and that was when I saw him. He stood in the corner of the graveyard, and for some reason, it stopped me dead in my tracks. I think it was out of fear. Fight or flight, only mine was fight, flight, or freeze. And at that moment, my body chose to freeze. As I stood there, I could make out he was a very tall and imposing figure. He had his back to me, and he seemed to be standing over a grave that was broken and had most likely been moved. I felt a little strange, like I wasn't meant to see them, or rather, they shouldn't see me. It was as if something let me go and I was able to move away. I took no chances and bolted for the gate. Shutting it behind me without hesitation, I ran down the hill. I didn't even look behind me as I made my way to the bottom of the hill because the feeling of dread washed over me. So backtracking a little, I want to describe what I saw and still see when I mention him. So for some reason, I felt it was a male in his late 50s, maybe. He had a full black trench coat on with the collar up. It stood out because it was quite warm that day. He also had a dark hat on, which was pulled forward, so I couldn't make out any features. I can also remember when I stood frozen, I was hearing a low mumble of words I couldn't quite make out or understand, and for some reason, I thought it sounded like Latin. The reason why I remember it so well was because along with the words, which for some reason I was 100% sure were coming from him even though he was on the other side of the field, there was also a horrid stench of rot and what could only be described as sulfur. I didn't stop as I felt the overwhelming feeling that the male figure had noticed me and I needed to get home.
Oh my God.
Again, I'm not really sure why I felt so threatened. For some unknown reason, I was being told to look over my shoulder. I needed to turn around. So I peered over the large bushes and I saw that this figure was gone from where he had stood. He seemed to have completely vanished and I didn't know where he was. Calming down a little, I brushed it off, thinking maybe he had just left the other way. And I was just being silly and playing tricks on myself. But I obviously felt a little bit uneasy and started to speed up my walking. I turned again for a second time, hearing some snap behind me. I remember I heard the gate opening and shutting rather hard behind me. Bearing in mind I was halfway down the hill at this point, and saw that this person was at the gate that I had just left, and he was looking directly at me. I could now see that he had a dark, full beard with a scary, full smile and really dark eyes. His skin looked sickly pale. I instantly panicked and started to walk backwards, still looking at this man at the top of the hill. I remember thinking it wasn't possible to get there that quickly because it was a big field. It wasn't a small graveyard. That was when I felt my stomach drop, because while I was looking at this man for what felt like ages and could have only been seconds, I heard a low, deep growl, and he started to run full speed at me. I bolted towards home faster than I'd run before, suddenly feeling like I was in real danger, and I literally ran all the way home. I remember shouting for someone to help me or something as I ran through a dog walker's field, but no one helped me. I remember every time I turned around, I could see this man was getting closer to me and was grunting and laughing as he chased me home. The man didn't look or act like a ghost, except the way it ran at me and their eyes. They didn't look natural at all. In my gut, I knew I had to stay away from the man. I knew I was in a lot of danger, and if this man got to me, something really bad would happen. So I ran literally all the way home and got into my house, locking the front door and sliding into my kitchen under the kitchen counter, which had a large bay window looking out into the front garden. I knew he was outside as I could hear him laughing and calling my name, which he wouldn't have known as I didn't recognize him at all. I was in tears as I could hear that he was tapping the window lightly, knowing I was hiding under the windowsill. Again, this was in the middle of the day, and it was sunny and bright out. After I heard him bang on the window for a third time, I couldn't take it anymore and ended up ringing my grandparents, and my granddad answered. I told him in a full-blown panic that I've had someone following me home from school and I needed help because I felt in danger as they're right outside the garden. Not wanting to look to see if they were still there, my granddad said he would come over as quickly as he could, and he stayed on the phone as he could hear the banging on the windows. He was also trying to help me calm down because I was in full-blown panic mode. When my granddad got to the front of my garden, he told me to stand up so he could see me, and I managed to stand up after being huddled in a ball for what felt like hours. My granddad was saying no one was there, that the man seemed to have gone and everything was okay. But to my horror, when I stood up, I was greeted by the same man from the graveyard standing right next to my granddad. I told my gramps to get away from the man as he stood right next to him, and that he was mocking me by bowing as if it was all just a game to him. He was slowly waving at me from the other side of the garden. The scariest thing I've ever heard was my Gramps saying there was no one here and he couldn't see him at all. I think I may have fainted after that, as I don't remember much else, but I remember waking up in my bed. It was later, as it was dark outside. I remember waking up because I could hear a low chuckle from the corner of the room next to my window. I thought I was just hearing things and looked towards the corner feeling slightly sick as the room smelt like sulfur. I turned on my bedside lamp to see if it was my dog or maybe a teddy, and for a split second, I thought I saw a figure standing and staring at me from the corner of the room. I remember I jumped out of bed and ran to turn the main light on, and my mother came rushing in, making me look over to her and back at the corner of the room, but of course, he had gone. After that, my window was locked shut and I didn't open my blinds for years. I slept either with the main light on or most of the time just didn't sleep at all. My mother took me to see a therapist as she thought I was hallucinating, but nothing came of it. I also had awful recurring nightmares about him attacking me either in my bedroom, the alley behind my house, or even walking to and from school. He always attacked with a knife, and the same smell of sulfur could be smelt every time I was woken up. I always heard him calling my name, mocking and teasing me, even feeling and sometimes seeing him stalking me when I was walking around town with my family or friends. To this day, after I'd moved out of my childhood home, he's still around. He stands outside my side window in the living room or across the road and watches me. I have even asked my neighbors if they'd seen anyone hanging around my house, and all of them say no. I ended up falling out of religion after this event and turned towards paganism / more spiritual paths, which has seemed to help. I have even spoken and been visited by a few mediums to see if they could get some answers as to what or who this figure is and wanted. They all said that he doesn't like talking and doesn't have a lot of answers. They said they think he is not a ghost, but something much darker who has attached itself to me.
It's a demon.
He will never tell them his real name. The only understandable answer that they get from him is the reason why he's attached to me is because he likes me. So I taught myself how to protect and cleanse myself by putting up protection around my house and keeping crystals and herbs on my person at all times. I actually have a beautiful black cat called Salem, which he seems to be scared of. I also went to my town's heritage center and asked for anything to do with the old graves and if there were any archives of names. Strangely enough, I was told that the book and documents from the old church were actually lost earlier that year and no one knew where they had gone. So I still have no clue who this man is or was. I still see and hear him trying to call me to come closer. He still frightens me a little as he is getting increasingly more hostile with banging around the house outside of my house at night. I'm just so glad to say that he hasn't made it inside. But that's my story about my not so friendly ghost or whatever he is. Even writing this to you, I am sat in my living room watching him pacing back and forth outside. He doesn't seem to like me talking about him. I wish I could say this was just a figment of my imagination, but I've spoken to my therapist and mediums about it, and they say it doesn't make sense.
I definitely remember this one. I was literally thinking about this one the other day.
Were you?
Because the vision of being crouched down below the window and the banging and everything.
Tapping, calling their name.
I was thinking about that the other day because it scares me so bad.
Ugh.
And I didn't read this again. This one has scarred me yet again. And I think some people commented back to Fox Goblin and they were like, hey, contact me. I can, help you out and stuff. So
if you're in the comments, Fox Goblin, and you feel comfortable, let us know if things are better or if you're okay, if you found help.
I'd be interested.
He or it is gone from your life.
Too.
It feels very demonic to me.
The smell and everything.
It was unearthed from a grave.
And the smell of like rotting meat and sulfur and things like that. It's just like, has to be. And Latin. Speaking Latin.
It's a demon.
Update us.
Okay, so this next one, it really scares me. And it's one, like you said, you will like be laying in bed thinking about. This is one that I lay in bed and think about sometimes.
Oh no.
This one is from Emma. It's Listener Stories 11, which was episode 64. And again, this is just a snippet of their story. You see, I work as a nurse or a nursing assistant in my early years, mostly night shift and with elderly people, both in facilities and in their own homes, but also in ICU at the hospital. And let me tell you folks, there are more encounters than I could put in one email. One time in my life, I worked as an assisted nurse, but in home care. So I was driving around at night, checking up on my patients and helping them with toilet runs or just making sure they are safe. My colleague and I were going to a patient that we joked about living in a haunted house because of the eerie feeling that settled in our stomachs every time we went into her home.
Oh no, I remember this one.
This was an elder. I went looking for this one.
I hate this one.
I was like, I gotta find this exact, because this one was on my list. This was an elderly lady using a walker, suffering from dementia, living in a big farmhouse by herself with a baby gate keeping her from ascending the stairs to the upstairs to keep her from harming herself. We parked our car to let the headlights light our way to the front door as we always did. The house looked like it always did, dark and ominous. As we walked inside her house, we heard giggling. Any other time, there would be silence, and we would just check up on her to make sure she hadn't fallen over or anything. So immediately goosebumps on both of us. We walked to her bedroom and found our little lady sitting on her bed giggling. I crouched down to look at her face and ask her what was going on, but she kind of looked through me and said in a quiet voice, "Bang." I looked at my colleague and was met with the same confusion I was feeling. But when I was going to ask further questions, we heard a loud bang from upstairs, like a teenager mad at their parents banging their door shut. We froze, looking at each other, wondering what in the actual F we were going to do. We were about 20 and felt immortal, so after a lot of talk, we convinced ourselves that she must have a window open up there that had blown shut.
Never in my life have I felt immortal. I'm sorry.
at no age.
No, never. I've always been like, I'm gonna die. Get out.
So against our better judgment, we went to the stairs. At first, we noticed that the lights were on, which weren't on when we went in, but we decided to be brave and venture up, all while the little lady kept giggling. Upstairs, all the doors, cabinets, windows, you name it, were open wide, and every light was turned on. Where were the things that made the loud noise if there wasn't anything being shut? Still, we went around shutting the doors, windows, and shutting off all the lights. We even checked for timers, but there were none. Going down, we heard the lady say, "I know you think it's funny, but the girls were really scared." Peeking around the corner, we saw her, once again, laying down in her bed, but on her side, obviously talking to someone that wasn't there. That was our cue. We were out of there. We ran to our car, jumped in, and locked all the doors and just let out a sigh of relief. But then my colleague said really loudly, "Emma, start the car, let's go." And when I looked towards the house and saw in the upstairs window a light being on and something standing there watching us leave. Trust me, if there was someone apart from that lady, we would have seen them in our venture from room to room upstairs. There wasn't one more night that I went into her home, and if I had to, I would stand by her door and keep it open for a quick escape. I've also seen things peeking around corners while being at my patients' homes, although they are staying there alone. So as you can see, I have quite a few experiences, but both visual and audible. But one thing is for certain, I'd rather see things haunting me rather than just a noise, because then I won't know who or what is making it.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate that one.
Me too.
I hate that one so much.
That one, to me, like plays out in my mind like a movie.
Yes.
That one haunts me.
Just the, like her saying bang before the loud bang.
Yes.
Like
and
she
then
knew it was going to happen.
Just giggling. Just like, hee hee.
It makes me think that maybe it is just like a spirit that's befriended the lady,
her partner that has passed, or
maybe or
a sister
even before
or
she
something
lived there, like a spirit from someone who lived there before.
I hope,
because she's giggling with it and so I don't know.
Whew, move on.
Okay.
I'm sweating.
We'll move on. This next one is from Lee. It's from Listener Stories 12, episode 65. I stayed with my grandparents a lot throughout my childhood. They had a nicely sized all wood log cabin. I always felt kind of nervous when I was there alone or just in the house by myself. But there was one room in particular that always gave me the spooks. It was the downstairs bathroom that was connected to my bedroom by a closet. Pretty cool, but also kind of scary. It was one of those bathrooms that when you shower, you cannot close your eyes because of how on edge you get. So when I was about 6 or 7, I was staying there like normal. I had taken a shower in the bathroom, brushed my teeth, did my hair, all the normal stuff. I felt fine and everything seemed normal. My mom happened to be staying the night there too because I begged her to stay for a sleepover. She never liked staying there, and I never knew why until this night. I woke up in the middle of the night, which was abnormal for me because I was notoriously known that since birth, I normally slept through the night. It was around 3:30 a.m. I needed to go to the bathroom. To this day, I still don't know why I needed to go to the bathroom. I didn't need to pee or anything. I just needed to go to the bathroom. So I did. Instead of going through my closet, I went all the way around into the living room, around the stairs, through the kitchen, and when I opened the bathroom door, there was a huge black spot in the corner near the toilet. As my eyes adjusted, I saw the outline of what seemed to be a man. I wasn't scared or anything until it turned completely around and froze when it saw me. My heart started to beat out of my chest, and I got so sweaty I could feel the beads rolling down my forehead. It then opened its mouth like a snake, unhinging its jaw. This is when I screamed so loud that I thought for sure everyone had heard me. I ran through the kitchen and living room and up the stairs to my grandparents' room. I was screaming, "There's a man with a long mouth in the bathroom!" Screaming, crying, snotting, shaking, you name it. My papa, the fearless man he is, ran downstairs and grabbed a knife from the kitchen and looked into the bathroom, and there was nothing. After the whole thing, I asked them if they heard me scream, and they said no. which was really weird because of how loud I was. They're very light sleepers and would have definitely woken up. Once I got back into my bedroom, I saw my mom on the other side of the bed sitting straight up, crying and shaking. My Nana ran to her and kind of cradled her, asking if she was okay. She said, "I heard Lee scream upstairs. I got out of bed to go get her, and I heard chains going up and down the stairs. I went out anyway, and there was a man at the top of the stairs with his mouth open, staring at me, and I screamed for everyone and no one came. I ran back into the room and heard the chains again. I sat on the bed trying to calm myself down to go back out there, and then I heard a whisper yell from the bathroom saying, 'Not you, her.' After we all got calmed down and relaxed again, which took an extremely long time, we all went back to bed in my Nana's room. I slept with my Nana and Papa, and my mom slept on the daybed in her room, and nothing like that happened again. My mom also never stayed there again."
Absolutely not. I do remember this one. This one I blocked out. I didn't remember until like the chain part, and then I was like, oh yeah. A long mouth? Imagine.
Not you, her.
Imagine. Your kid comes to you and says there's a man with a long mouth in the bathroom.
No, she saw it.
I know.
Off the stairs.
No, but I mean coming to the grandparents.
Oh, yeah. No. We moved into the house that I'm currently living in about 6 or 7 months ago. I staged the house once before everything was moved in and once after. And I've never had weird feelings unless I was by myself at night. And that's just a me thing. Probably. I was up late 3 nights ago and I was really hungry. So I decided to go downstairs and make something to snack on while I journaled. The only lights that were on were the ones that I was currently using. So the kitchen. When I was done, I turned off the light, walked down the hallway, and made my way to the bottom of the stairs. My room lights were off. So I immediately started freaking out because I knew they were on when I left. Plus, that's my safe haven. So now I'm scared because there were 0 lights on. I start heading up the stairs. When I look up, I see the same man with his mouth open at the top of my stairs. I screamed so loud and I dropped my noodles all over the carpet. I ran back down the few stairs I made it up and turned on the living room light. There was nothing there when I looked back. I turned on all the surrounding lights and cleaned up my ramen, put everything in the kitchen, and ran back upstairs and turned on all my lights, shut my closet doors, covered up my window with a blanket, and covered my mirror. I calmed myself down finally with some YouTube. Not you guys, because, well, you know, we know. And I finally went to bed. That was a few nights ago, and it scared me so bad I still get little scary feelings every now and then, but I don't feel any energies. The next morning, I asked my mom if she heard me scream the night before. She told me no, and I told her what happened. She froze in complete fear after I told her, tears filling her eyes as she started to cry. She told me, "I never thought I'd see or hear about him again. I have constant, recurring nightmares about that night, and I'll never forget hearing that whisper." My final thoughts are, has this thing been following me very silently for years, or is it just in my head? What did it mean by "not you, her"? And why did nobody but my mom hear me scream? Why did nobody hear my mom scream? And why didn't my mom hear my scream upstairs when I screamed downstairs?
Dude, props to you for being brave enough to clean up the ramen. It would have stayed there till the daylight.
Really?
Yes! After seeing that, you think you're going to be like, well, might as well clean this up. No!
After seeing that,
No.
I don't know that I'd be able to move again.
No! If I had to replace the carpet because the ramen just soaked into everything, I would. I would not be cleaning up and like, let's go back to bed.
My whole body is tingling.
Pass away. I would die.
Ugh, that's so scary. I do want to know. So we have had a few stories where like the screaming is contained and people can't hear it. And that is something I feel that like just dark energies can do.
It's horrifying.
And I don't like it.
Because if no one can hear you, then what?
I don't know.
If this person is still watching,
Lee, if you're still here,
if you have any updates, let us know.
So Natalie has decided to grace us with her voice and read a story.
Okay, I'm nervous. Nobody judge me. Or judge me. I don't care. All right, so this one is from Erika, Listener Stories 19. This is episode 81.
So we're getting kind of recent.
We are getting recent, so if you are newer, you might remember this one. When I was around 7 years old, my grandma took me to Mexico with her, specifically Sabinas Hidalgo. When we got there, it was a regular day as any other. I was playing with my cousin outside of my grandpa's house. This area was more of a small pueblo type of place. You would often hear people up and down the street selling tamales, pan, gasolina, etc., and the only thing that would pass at night was the water. Well, that night, we settled into my grandpa's one-bedroom house. My grandma and grandpa slept in the back room, and me and my cousin in the front room. As I was asleep, I was suddenly woken up by a tapping on the window. Keep in mind, the bed we were sleeping in was against the window. As I looked up, I saw the ugliest bruja. She looked at me with bulging eyes and a big mischievous smile. As I was staring at her, I tapped my cousin to get up, but she didn't. I screamed, and when everyone got up, we looked outside, and the only thing that was outside was an owl. We were freaked out, but my grandpa went out there and cussed it out, and it left. The legend says that brujas turn into owls and stalk people who they have an interest in. The only way to get rid of them is to curse at them. To this day, I can see her face staring at me with that smile. It was as if she wanted to take me with her.
Oh,
I picked this one.
I know you did.
I picked this one because I don't know. This one really, really freaked me out.
The thought of her being like outside, like, hey, come with me.
And then
more like, come with me.
You did not have to do that.
I hate it. That's what I pictured.
You did not have to do that. That was horrible.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I hate that one. Sorry, I don't know. Just something about it really. All the things we get from like Mexico, I don't know why they always scare me. Like all the La Llorona stories and then like the witch story. Like it's just, it feels so real. And like, I mean, we've said it a bunch of times, but I guess it's just proximity.
Just we're close to Mexico all of our lives.
Yeah.
And like Mexican culture.
Yeah. It just feels really, really real to me.
I'm really intrigued, and it's on the list of like owls.
Yeah.
In like the legend of the lechuza and like La Lechuza and things like that. So it is on the list still because of this story.
I'm ready. I'm ready to hear that one. Would you like me to read another one?
This is also one you chose.
Oh, because I didn't even have to read the story.
No, it's Susan.
I saw the name. Susan. Said with love. All right, so this one is Susan. This is from Listener Stories 19, episode 81.
You've heard us mention Susan a few times if you've been here.
So this is just a snippet of her longer story. Another experience happened in the house I live in now as an adult with my family. One summer day, I went into my sister-in-law's house to swim. My oldest son, then a teenager, didn't want to go. At some point, while we were out swimming, I got a call from my son and he was freaked out. He asked me where we were. I said, remember, we were going to Aunt Lollie's to swim. I told you last night and you said to go without you, so I didn't wake you up. He really got upset then. He said that he'd gotten up and had sat down in the recliner in the family room to watch TV. He did not remember that we had gone somewhere and thought we were in the house with him. He said he kept hearing the cat meowing loudly and his younger sister saying something to it. He was trying to watch TV and called for her to be quiet, but she kept talking to the cat, who continued to meow. Finally, my son yelled, "Will you shut up?" And suddenly, a voice very close to his ear said, "You shut up." My son swung around to smack his sister, and no one was there. He was so freaked out. He grabbed his cell phone and ran out the back door. That's where he was when he called me.
Ugh, that one's sickening.
That one is horrifying, but it also makes me kind of giggle. It's like, no, you shut up.
No, I'm playing with the cat. Mind your own business.
Yeah. I'm playing with Merv.
Okay, hey Merv, with that point of view, I guess it's not as bad, but I still don't like it being right there. No, you shut up.
No, you shut up. Yeah. No, I don't like it being like angry and like having the gumption to come at you and be like, no. I'd be like, no, you have no power here. But that one has stuck with me.
To be the son and to realize nobody is
I'm home alone.
And I've been hearing people about all morning.
No.
So thanks again, Susan. Our next one comes from May. This is episode 82, Listener Stories 20. This one really freaked me out. I think you actually picked this one too.
I did. I think I picked the rest of these possibly.
Almost.
I think
I picked the last
I'm seeing
few.
A few of them.
When I was young, my parents had separated, and at some point my dad got his own house. He found one he could afford. I loved the house, but there was something wrong with it. When we pulled up to it for the first time, my excitement immediately turned into unexplainable dread. Across the street was an empty grass field, and on the other side of that was a big graveyard. We did a smaller tour of the house, and the part of the house I hated most was the basement. On the way to the bottom were 13 red stairs, and there was a strange static feeling coming from the basement. My heart dropped to the floor when my dad told my sister and I that our room was in the basement. Immediately to the right of the bottom of the stairs was the creepiest utility room you could imagine, and all that separates it from the main room was a curtain which added to the creepiness. Even worse, our bedroom had no door, not even a curtain. The room we stayed in was painted green, with green carpet, so it immediately felt so much better and less unsettling than the red carpet in the dimly lit empty basement main room.
That just feels like a murder house. I'm sorry.
I know.
Red carpet in a dim basement?
Yeah,
why?
That just automatically is just a no for me.
You're doing something mischievous down there.
Or the red carpet was just cheap.
That too.
The utility room and the bedroom were the only 2 rooms connected from the main floor. The first night, the static energy in the air only seemed to get stronger. Being the idiot kid I was intrigued in the dark, listening to what sounded like ghostly whispers from outside the room. I always had the feeling in my gut that I was not allowed to step outside of the door, if you could call it that. I had a small inner voice I'd never heard before, begging me not to go into the dark. And so, from then on, I swore to myself to never let myself or my sister go into the dark at night. My little sister had noticed the flowing movement of the darkness and was terrified, so I grabbed her and we huddled up across from it, watching. Then, the unthinkable happened. We heard something that sounded like hands lightly hitting the wall. The slapping sound was paralyzing. We heard it come from the utility room about 6 feet in the air, making its way to the top left of our bedroom doorway. Then it showed itself. Suddenly, a head swung around into the doorway, a pale little girl's face staring in at us as if we were its prey. I'll never forget the hungry look in its dull gray eyes and the movement of her long black hair falling below her. As quickly as her head appeared, it was pulled back, and she crawled on the wall back to the utility room. We were absolutely terrified. We screamed so loud, we were surprised that our parents didn't hear us. We put my sister's mattress up to cover the doorway, and my sister and I fell asleep on the edge of the mattress, huddled together, crying.
Sick. Disturbing. Disgusting. Terrifying.
Oh, I hate it so much.
That one, I honestly didn't remember hearing that one. I don't know if
one you blocked out.
Fully just blocked it out, but when I was going through reading these, I was like,
what is this fresh terror?
So scary. That is so scary. Oh, I hate it. Oh, I hate it.
Yeah, I hate that. I hate the hungry look in its eyes. I hate that description of it.
But it just like swinging down.
Like swing around to look at them like.
Yeah, I don't like the way you just moved your head at me. That was horrifying.
I'm so sorry.
But yes. It's what I envisioned.
Our next story comes from Jolie. Episode 87, listener stories 23.
This one's horrifying. I'm not ready.
I was staying with my boyfriend Chris's parents while we were waiting to move into our apartment when this experience took place. To clarify, this was not a new environment to me, and I was and am very comfortable with his parents and at their house. During this time, Chris had been leaving for work in the early morning hours, maybe 4 or 5 a.m. every day, and I would stay in bed and sleep in after he left. That morning, like all others, Chris sat next to me in bed, getting ready to leave, gave me a kiss, said, "I love you," and left the room for work. I remember waking up when I felt him sit down next to me, and then turning right to face the windows in the room to try to fall back asleep after he left. My eyes were still slightly fluttering open and closed as I drifted in and out of consciousness. I was aware that some time had passed, but I reopened my eyes to see I hadn't rolled over or changed position since the last time my eyes were open. There was just a little bit of light coming in through the shades of the windows, so I knew it could only be maybe 6 or 6:30 a.m. I reawoke because I felt the weight of someone shift onto the bed next to me and wiggle right next to my body, against my back, which was facing the door to the bedroom. I thought, that's weird. I thought Chris already left for work, but also remember thinking maybe his shift got canceled or something. I tried to turn to face who I thought was Chris, cuddled up against me, but realized I couldn't move. When I tried to say, "Chris, is that you?" my mouth wouldn't open and no words came out. I couldn't even mumble. My eyes were wide open though, and I could still blink and move them around. Starting to panic, I attempted to wiggle my fingers and toes while repeating in my head, Chris, is that you?" over and over. I felt the weight of somebody pressing against my back and almost playing with my hair, just a weird, soft touch on the back of my head. Suddenly, whatever was laying behind me moved. I felt their weight shift away from me, move towards the edge of the bed closest to the door, and just sit there. Obviously, I couldn't see it, but I could just feel that it had moved. It then said in a low-toned male voice, "Chris is not here," before sliding off the edge of the bed and hitting the floor with a thud sound.
My body just went numb.
Ugh,
again.
You were gonna hit the floor with a thud sound.
Yeah.
The voice had a scratchiness to it, almost croaky. The way it slid off the bed and sounded as if someone had put their feet on the ground and just slowly allowed them to slide away from the bed, dragging their body slowly off of it. After the thud of whatever thing was hitting the ground, I could sense that it was quickly back on its feet and moving towards the window where I was facing. Mind you that during all of this, I was freaking out, trying with every muscle in my body to get up or turn around or say any words. I shut my eyes when the thing started running around to my side of the bed, and as I shut them, I was able to break free of the paralysis and flop my body onto my back. I just lay there for a while, fear racing through me, and slowly began moving different parts of my body to make sure I was awake and able to move them again. Eventually, I sat up and saw the sun had fully risen. I tapped my phone to see that it was about 8:30 a.m. Had the paralysis lasted that many hours? Where did that thing go once I was able to move again? What the hell did it want from me? Why? I was shook to my core and didn't get out of bed for a long time, afraid that whatever entity was there was still waiting for me in the room somewhere. One extra weird detail that still gives me chills to this day is that my boyfriend's mom is a spiritual healer and frequently communicates with spirits and angels. When I finally got the courage to get out of bed and go upstairs to the kitchen, I told her about what I had just experienced, and she didn't seem surprised. She told me that the night before, she had been doing a healing session in the house with one of her clients, and the energy attached to the client was dark and almost demonic. She said that demon or negative energy must have stuck around the house even though she had done a protection ceremony beforehand, and that whatever it was strong enough to attach itself to the house. We saged the room I slept in, did a few energy clearing sessions, and banished the entity from the house, and nothing like that ever happened again. In fact, my boyfriend was shocked when we were getting ready for bed, and he asked if I was scared to sleep here again, and I said no. I genuinely felt that whatever was there was long gone. I slept just fine that night, but I have never, ever stopped thinking about that experience.
You know, this is just telling me that I have to wake up when Ryan leaves in the morning.
Ryan's not here.
Shut up.
Do you imagine?
Shut up. No. This is fuel enough to make me wake up early when I don't have to. So thank you. Thank you, because I'm horrified. Jolie. Glad you're okay.
We had to throw a sleep paralysis story in there somewhere.
I wish we don't. I wish we wouldn't.
So you're going to read this next one, but I just want to say that every single time I get in my car to leave your house, this is what I think of.
Yeah, me too.
My whole body gets hot and I feel like I'm going to throw up and pass out at the same time. And I just like grip my steering wheel, just like straight ahead.
Yeah, me too. All right. So this one is from Iysha. It's from Listener Stories 24, episode 88. My mom is Thai, and the spiritual world in Thailand, from what I've been told, has its good and bad spirits. My mom has never believed in ghosts or seeing spiritual things until recently. A little bit about the culture. Most Thais will get their cars blessed by monks and get the roof inscribed for protection, which my family always did. They also have Buddhas, which are also blessed, sat on the dashboard. My mom was driving home around 3 a.m. coming back from the hospital. She was driving in the pitch black with only her car lights on, as she lives in quite a rural area where there are no street lights. However, when my mom was getting closer to home, a woman dangled her head in front of the windscreen as if she was lying on top of the car. My mom obviously freaked out and put on the windscreen wipers, and as she did so, the woman's head swayed with the wipers. The quicker the wipers went, the quicker the woman's head would sway. My mom just tried to carry on driving to get home and try not to look at the woman. I don't know if the woman was still there when she got to the house, and I'd love to ask more into it, but my mom has unfortunately passed away from cancer. So sorry. When she told me the story, I asked what the woman looked like to see if it was a friend of hers who had maybe passed away. She said that her hair was all over the windscreen and over her face, so she couldn't see who it was. From then onwards, she was terrified.
My heart started racing when you were reading that story.
I will never recover from learning this information.
No.
Ever, 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 ever. You think about things being on the road or in the car with you on top.
No, that just feels even more threatening for some reason.
Horrible. Anyways.
That one will stick with me for the rest of my life, I think.
Me too.
Like this one as well. This is from Megan, episode 91, Listener Stories 27. I began to experience sleep paralysis at a young age. At about 10 years old, I would find myself frozen in bed in the middle of the night with the comforter pulled halfway over my face, leaving only my eyes exposed. Unfortunately, as a 10-year-old, I was unaware of the rule about mirrors in the bedroom, so my vanity was placed directly against the wall at the foot of my bed, and she was always in it, staring at me. I couldn't close my eyes. I was forced to look at the black and gray shadow of a young girl with long black hair standing in the center of the mirror, looking right at me all night. The only way she went away was if I passed out from exhaustion after hours of heart-pounding fear. Because I was kept up most nights, I started falling asleep in school and failing classes. The same thing would continue to happen for years, slowly evolving into a more interactive experience each time. She would come out of the mirror and kneel down at the foot of my bed with her greasy black hair over one eye with a menacing smile, staring at me through her brow. Her face was so close to the bed that I could hear the sounds of her sharp breaths against the blanket. The sound continues to haunt me to this day. Eventually, after begging to move the mirror, my grandfather helped me remove it. But apparently, she didn't need the mirror anymore. I knew she was still there, but I couldn't see her. I would go to sleep, and instead of being woken up and forced to stare at her, it would begin before I even fell asleep. I would lay down and my mom would stand in the doorway reassuring me that the mini dream catchers I had hung up would start working and she'd turn the lights out before closing the door and leaving. I would lay as still as possible and listen for any strange sounds as I squeezed my eyes shut, and then, before I even had a chance to doze off, I felt the tugging. Slowly, inch by inch, the blanket moved to the foot of the bed, forcing me to keep pulling it back up. It was subtle at first, but after a few months, I'd wake up and the blanket would be down to my waist, and I'd be frozen in fear to retrieve it. Every night until I grew up and moved out, I would have to tuck the blanket under the mattress to feel comfortable getting in bed. I was in high school at this point, and one day I sat at a new table for lunch. At this table sat one of the school's weird girls, who I actually loved. High schoolers are judgy, who happened to be doing readings of people at the round lunch table while we ate. I sat and listened to her go around to everyone and tell them if they had attachments or loved ones following them, and it was really interesting despite my skepticism. When she came to me, she skipped me and instead did my best friend who was sitting next to me. After finishing the last person, I asked, "What about me?" And she took a deep breath to compose herself. "I don't really want to tell you," she said without eye contact. But of course, everyone at the table insisted she go on. I told her it was okay. "You can say it," I reassured her. So she took a long pause and asked me a question. "Do you have 2 closets in your bedroom?" My best friend looked at me, knowing I in fact do have 2 and that she would never know that. I confirmed this to the table, now filled with wide eyes. "Okay. Are they right next to each other on the same wall though? And one is a double door closet, right?" she asked. My friend and I snapped our heads to meet eyes, in shock, once again, wondering how she knew that. I told her, yes, again, now shaking. She continued with a shudder and nauseated look on her face, as if she was seeing the image in her mind's eye. She said, "Well, it's in the one with 2 doors, and it likes to crawl." The entire table shuddered and let out squeals. But she was right. I had seen it myself. She definitely liked to crawl. Yikes. Yikes.
This one's too fresh. This one has been on my brain. It's too soon.
Very recent.
Yeah.
They're not far enough removed for me to be okay.
No, it doesn't feel like a distant memory. It feels like this just happened to me, personally.
I know. I feel like some of these I have experienced. Like I can picture them so vividly in my mind that it's like almost a memory of mine too.
Mm-hmm.
This next one, episode 91, listener stories 27, comes from DJ. The first story I have for you happened at one of my friend's houses. The local legend is that her road was built on top of an old mine shaft that collapsed, killing many miners. Teachers at our school could always tell who lived on that road because they were always the kids coming in with their own ghost stories. I've had many eerie experiences at my friend's house throughout the years. The earliest one was in 2nd grade. We were in the back part, the haunted part of her home, playing with the dollhouse that was situated in a corner. Her mom called us for lunch, and we both froze. It felt like something was standing behind us, bending over, waiting for us to turn. I can't remember how long we sat there, but after what felt like an eternity, I said, "Are we safe?" And my friend answered, "Not yet. We have to keep playing." After a while, her actual mom came into the playroom and asked what we wanted for lunch. I don't know who called us for lunch earlier, what was behind us, or what would have happened if we turned around.
Yeah, that one. Hate it.
That these 2 children knew
They
instinctively this was not my friend's mom.
It's too dark. It's too dark if the kids are already like, we can't stop playing.
Just keep playing and pretend like you don't hear it. If you hear something, no, you didn't.
Everywhere.
This next one is from Bree. This is one from one of our demon episodes. Those 2 were really scary.
They're really dark.
This one's episode 93, listener stories 29. Trigger warning for talk about unaliving, they say. One night after school, I had fallen asleep in my mom's room. I was really tired after gymnastics practice, and since it was only me and my mom in our household at the time, it wasn't uncommon for me to sleep in her bed. I remember her coming into her room around 9 p.m. asking if I was staying in her bed for the night or if I was going to my room. I was already super comfy in her bed, so I said, I'll just stay here. Your bed is comfier. And I fell asleep. Let me make it clear that this all happened in my dream. So, in my dream, I woke up, and as soon as I wake up, I get a super uneasy feeling. Something is in the room, and it's not good. For reference, let me explain the layout real quick. The bed is in the middle of the room against a huge window with 2 more windows on the right-hand side, a dresser, and a small closet on the left, along with the entrance and a TV and another nightstand across from the bed. Next to the TV, there is a clock. Okay, so I wake up in my dream, feeling uneasy, and I sit straight up. I look at the clock, and it's 6:33 a.m. I'm scanning the room, looking for whatever is making me feel uneasy, but there's nothing. I nudge my mom, who was facing away from me, towards the 2 windows and say, "Mom, there's something here." Her, being very Catholic, mumbles, "You're okay, mija, just pray, and you'll feel better." This went on for a few minutes, and so I eventually turn the other way towards the dresser and closet and start praying, but I can't shake the feeling that something is still there, watching me. I feel something shift by my feet. I turned on my side still and glanced towards my feet when I see it. It was a black humanoid creature thing hunched over by my feet. It almost looked like when a cat hunches when it's scared or provoked. As I make eye contact, I notice it has bright red eyes and it slowly begins to smile at me with sharp teeth. I instantly start freaking out and start elbowing my mom in the back to wake up. I'm elbowing her for about 10 seconds and she's not waking up. Finally, I get scared and mad enough that I elbow her super hard to wake her up. And when she finally wakes up, she spins around to look at me, except it wasn't her. It was that thing, super close to my face, smiling. And all it said was, just effing kill yourself already. Then I actually woke up in real life. When I looked at the clock, it was 6:33 a.m. Needless to say, I was terrified and couldn't sleep for hours. I thankfully haven't had a dream like that since, knock on wood, and I never want to.
I would be so scared to actually try to wake my mom up afterwards.
I know, because you think that like, well, I've been here before.
And the way our mom would wake up, she's like, what? And it would be like, it takes her a while to become a real person.
Yeah.
That's too much. This one is really gross. I hate it.
I hate that the dream ended so abruptly. It was just like, do this horrible thing to yourself and then boom, awake at the same time.
Yeah. This one was dark.
This next one, you might need to disappear out of the room if you don't want to hear it.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's a bad one, okay? This is probably the one for me.
Okay, let me get more cake.
Okay. This is the one. This comes from episode 93, listener stories 29 from Ariya. Warning before I start, it is gonna get gross. It's gonna be nasty, so don't eat another bite of cake.
I was about to say.
When I was 18, I had an extremely unusual and vivid occurrence. For some background knowledge, this story occurred at my grandparents' house. A house they built in the 70s in an area on the central coast of California. Then so rural, there were only dirt roads, tons of eucalyptus trees, and no neighbors. I have no idea the history of the land, but based upon my experience and the experiences of my other family members, I have to assume there is some energy there.
I don't even want to hear this one again.
I know, I'm sorry. You said before that you want to just like disappear out of the room and then reappear afterwards. You want to do that?
No, it's okay.
Okay, I know. I'm so sorry.
I'm just going to zone out. This one is disgusting.
I couldn't not include it because it has imprinted on me. It is something that I think about very often. This is the one. This is my number one.
Okay. After you say this one, I'm not doing any more commentary. Just go to the next story because I'm going to freaking throw up.
Back to the story. When I was 18, I moved into a different bedroom in my grandparents' house. Everything was going great and I was happy to have a space of my own after sharing bedrooms my whole life. The same day I moved my stuff in, I took a midday nap. During this nap, I had my very first sleep paralysis experience. It wasn't terribly unusual from other stories I've heard. I was able to look around my room. As I stated, this was a daytime nap. So it was daylight in my room with the curtains open and the sleep paralysis was accurate in that it was also daylight. This will be relevant later. I wasn't able to see the best. It was sort of like viewing yourself from both in first and third person at the same time. I didn't see anyone this time. I just felt a presence. It was aggressive, and I just knew it was a female presence. It was like she was hovering over me, not touching me, but nonetheless pinning me to the bed. I struggled in the dream, thrashing about, trying to fight it. I wasn't able to speak, but in my head, I thought, "You bitch, get off of me." She did not like that. The dream ended quickly. The following night, I was going to bed. Very normal circumstances, nothing out of the ordinary. Late into the night, I suddenly awakened. The lights were on. The TV was off. I looked around the room confused. Felt like total consciousness and clear first-person point of view. Completely real feeling. I then started to hear nails scratching down the hallway, slowly coming towards my bedroom door, which was now opened. I started crying in my dream, terrified of what would come next. When the being got to my door, she placed her long, dirty hand on the doorframe, wrapping her fingers over it so I could see her dirty, long, and chipped fingernails. I was hysterical, the absolute most terrified I ever was, and didn't think someone could handle this level of terror. She crawled into my room slowly, making eye contact with me and smiling. She was wearing a long, white, dirty nightgown, and her hair was down and stringy wet. Think the first Exorcist movie. I closed my eyes tight and cried. She crawled up to my bed. I could feel the weight of the mattress shifting and the squeaking of the springs. I opened my eyes, and she was on top of me. She was smiling. I couldn't look away. She proceeded to throw up on me, projectile vomiting a hot, smelly liquid all over me. She smiled and began to lick up the vomit that was all over my stomach and legs. I cried more. Just then, I heard banging from the attic in the distance. It was hard and loud bangs, like someone was trying to get out. She looked up at me, smiling, and told me, "Mama is coming," and crawled backwards off the bed and out of my room. As soon as she left the door, I woke up.
My stomach hurts. Continue.
I woke up sobbing, terrified, gripping my chest. I turned the lights on and called my mom. I never did ever see her appear in my sleep paralysis dreams again. It felt like she was angry. I called her names and got aggressive with her the previous day when I had that midday nap. I told my grandma about it. She's a woman who believes in Mexican black magic. She called her friends and told them my dream. They were equally worried about what it could mean. I know my grandma handled it with some kind of spell/cleanse, and I never saw her again. This whole experience was so unusual for me, as I had never been afflicted with sleep paralysis before or since. She was sending me a message, and it was received.
Yep. Go to the next one. I am sick to my stomach. Thank you.
This one scares me
for reminding me
so badly.
I do not have the stomach to handle stories like that.
All right, so we'll move on for you. This one comes from Kai, episode 94, listener stories 30. My first story happened when I was around 10 years old. We lived in St. Louis, Missouri. I still even remember the exact road we lived on after all these years. I'm 25 now, and this experience made me shut out the paranormal as much as I possibly could for many years. Now, as a kid, we used to play in the basement often. However, we always avoided the pantry room unless we weren't alone or our parents were in the kitchen. This particular story takes place the same week we were moving out into the house 2 houses down. This particular night, my mother put pizza in the oven in our new house. When the pizza was done and pulled out to cool, my mother set about trying to find the pizza cutter. When she couldn't find it, she decided that it must be in the old kitchen somewhere and that I might as well go try to find it. I remember getting frustrated that I had to go, but that was pretty much it. I walked 2 doors over quickly. As I stepped in the house, I noticed the door shut hard and loud behind me. It kind of made me jump, but I quickly shook it off as I reasoned with myself that it was just the wind. I went down the stairs and straight into the kitchen, going directly to the kitchen drawers, opening one after another, finding nothing. Now the dishwasher was up against the counter, and to open it, you had to put your back to the laundry/pantry room. As my fingertips touched the dishwasher, goosebumps ran up my arms. My breath came in quickly, and I realized I was holding it, listening to the noises around me. I opened the dishwasher, shaking the thoughts of fear and the slight voice in the back of my head. Terrified, I remember saying out loud, "Find the pizza cutter, come on." I looked around the rack and I couldn't find it. Right as I was about to give up, directly behind me was the loudest bang I could think of. Now, I knew what that noise was. It was often heard when someone bent down and grabbed the side of the dryer as they loaded it. The slide door was wide open, and utter darkness beyond it. My heart went into my throat. I froze in my spot for a brief second. Run, run, run. My 10-year-old brain yelled at me, but I started to back my way out of the kitchen. And when I turned, and hear me out, this was the part I used to leave out of the story because for a long time I convinced myself I didn't see this. I was face to face with a girl. She was so pale, with black sludge all over her, and a long, old, ripped blue dress. The sleeves were long and also covered in dark sludge. Her face a mix of anger and sadness. She had blue eyes. My ears filled with intense scream whispering that I couldn't understand. My own words filled the air as I screamed out and then no, no, no! I slapped my hands over my ears, running as fast as I could up the stairs, keeping my eyes glued straight to the floor so I wouldn't trip. Right into the living room, out of the front door without so much as closing the door, and I ran sobbing up to my mother. To this day, she says it was all in my imagination.
And that's what I would say too if I was scared.
Me too. Me too.
Be like, not real.
I would have to tell myself that.
Me too.
I believe you.
I would convince myself that didn't happen, but I believe that it did. But if it happened to me, no, it didn't.
The scariest part, and we mentioned this when we read it the first time, is that like they knew something was there.
Yeah.
They always sensed it. They never went in that area because they knew something was there. And it just decided to show its face that night.
Horrifying.
We have 2 more stories, and they're very recent. This first one is Amanda, episode 96, listener stories 31. When I was about 12, I had this horrific nightmare. I guess you could write this experience off as sleep paralysis, but there are just a few little details that make it feel like it was something more. Let me give some background info. In my room, all the furniture was antique. To give an idea of how old it was, my 85-year-old grandmother thrifted it for my mom when my mom was a kid. So pretty old. There was a dresser, a desk, and a mirror. Keep this mirror in mind. I had always felt somewhat uncomfortable about that mirror, especially at nighttime, because this mirror did face my bed. Well, one night I had a nightmare. I woke up to my room pitch black, so I immediately knew something is off, because I have a phobia of the dark. I always have a nightlight on. I try to wake myself up from the dream saying, "This isn't real. You can wake up. Just wake up and you won't have to deal with this." And I didn't wake up. I was getting frustrated with my brain for not waking up when I noticed a tall, dark, skeletal figure of a woman standing in the corner of my room with long, dark hair staring at me. I froze and told myself it wasn't real. I just needed to wake up. Then she started calling out to me, saying my name, whispering, saying I needed to come to her and she's been waiting. All kinds of creepy stuff, but I'm still frozen in place. I panicked and continued to tell myself, "Wake up, wake up, wake up," as the darkness around the woman, or creature, starts to spread around the room, slowly making its way to me. I started crying, telling her, "No, get away, please, just leave me alone. What are you?" She ignored my cries and continued to move closer and closer until I eventually snapped awake, back into the real world. I was so shaken up and had tears streaming down my face. I was in full fight or flight mode. I took a deep breath and told myself it wasn't real. It was just a dream. That is, until I heard the whispering. For a solid 10 minutes after I woke up, I heard the voice of whatever was in that nightmare whispering to me, calling for me, and saying my name over and over again. I was terrified.
Girl, me too. What do you mean?
Now, how does the mirror play into this? Well, after I had that nightmare, a few days later, I decided to rearrange my room. I ended up taking down the mirror and I put it away in the closet, covered up. The moment I did that, any uneasiness I had felt just went away. I had been pretty on edge since the nightmare, and now that was gone. Anytime I go near that mirror, I still get chills. That was a long time ago. Only recently did I hear a faint hello coming from a mirror in my bathroom, but I immediately rebuked it.
Good choice.
This is our last story, and this one came from the last Listener Stories episode. So, Listener Stories 32, episode 98, and this one will stick with me for the rest of my life.
Like, literally all of these?
Like all of them, but yeah, this one, I don't know. Maybe it's because we just recently read it, but it's so fresh too. It's just so scary to me. From Taylor, if I didn't already say that. I grew up in an extremely small town in northern Pennsylvania. Besides the main street, there are only 5 other side streets in my town. It's so small that there's no traffic lights, no lodging for guests, and our town doesn't have its own police force. State police officers patrol the town occasionally. The house I grew up in was built in 1860 and seemed to attract entities, specifically mimics. I grew up with the saying I've heard you ladies say, if you hear something, no you didn't. If you see something, no you didn't. There were countless times where us 3 kids would hear someone calling our names or saying something that our parents would say, and then the person we heard would be nowhere near the voice. For instance, I remember standing in the kitchen getting a glass of water, and I very clearly heard my mom call my name from the basement. I opened the door that led to the basement stairs, which is in the kitchen, and it was pitch black. There were no lights on and no sounds. I waited a second, and before I could say anything, I heard my mother's voice at the bottom of the stairs. I need you to get the laundry. I immediately slammed the door and ran to the dining room. Sitting in her seat in the living room, that's adjacent to the dining room, was my mother watching TV. She saw tears streaming down my face. My bodily reaction to fear is to tear up and ask what was wrong. I told her what I heard and that I knew something bad was going to happen, so I slammed the door on it, the voice. The reason this freaked me out so bad is because the washer and dryer were in the basement. Something in complete darkness, sounding like my mom, was trying to get me to walk right to it. Where the voice came from was where I would have needed to walk past to get to the washer and dryer. So if you want to hear the rest of the story and you haven't yet, you can go to episode 98 and go hear the rest of Taylor's story. But that portion of the story really just, I did not like it.
That's just like my first, not encounter, but the first time I came across any type of mimic stuff on the internet was that like 2-sentence scary story of like, I heard my mom calling my name, so I went downstairs. She stopped me and said, I heard it too.
Yeah.
It's like a classic.
But let us know in the comments if there are any stories that you wish we would have put in here. Are there any that stick out to you that you can remember that just really scared you, that really stuck with you?
I know there's more.
There are so many stories that we've read so far that were so good. Like we said, it was really, really hard to narrow down. Like I wanted to just take all of them. I was like, oh, this was good.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't. I mean, we can only, so many. It was really hard. And there were so many good heartwarming stories too. So we want to thank all of you for helping us get to 100 episodes.
Still doesn't feel real.
No.
But you know what does feel real? All this glitter I'm going to have to clean up.
Oh yeah.
Or confetti.
I kind of like it. Maybe
it's cute, but no.
No, it's a lot. It's like poking me in all through my sweater.
It's everywhere.
But we appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. We hope you enjoyed revisiting some of our scariest stories that we've read so far. There, I'm sure, will be more.
Yeah, and welcome. I mean, if you've been here from the beginning, that was just a review. But if you're new, I hope you were spooked at the beginning.
Taste. If you like this video, please like it, share it with your friends if you feel compelled to do so, and subscribe for more. We've got another episode coming Monday, and then more listener stories on Thursdays. If you're listening on audio, please give us 5 stars, and you can follow us on Instagram at GhostiesPod. We occasionally post over there sometimes. And that's it. Thank you again. We appreciate all of you so much for helping us get to 100. It's just insane.
Unreal for sure.
But we'll see you Monday.
Goodbye.